नारायण ब्रह्मस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततः जयम् उदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिके। हरे कृष्णा, दंडवत प्रणाम. Today we completing this chapter 8, Srimad Bhagwatam, Canto 11, chapter 8. Krishna the story of the Pingala. Shloka number 28 to 44. Tasya nirvinna chittaya गीतं शृणुयथा मम निर्वेदः आशापाषाणां पुरुषस्य यथा हि असि न हि अंगजात निर्वेदः देहबन्धं जियासति यथा विज्ञानरहित मनुजा ममतां नृप. पिंगला उवाच अहो मे मोह विततिं पश्यत अभिजित आत्मनः या कान्तात् असतः कामं कामयेन बालिशा संतं समीपे रमणं प्रदं वित्तप्रदं नित्यं इमं विहाय अकामदं दुःखभय आदि शोक मोहप्रदं तुच्छम् अहं भजे अज्ञा. अहो मया आत्मा परितापित वृथा सांकेति अवृत्त्या अति विहर्ग्य वार्तया त्रैहि त्रैनाथ नरात या अर्थ तृषः अनुशोच्यात् कृतेन वित्तं रतिम् आत्मना इच्छति यत् अस्तिभिः निर्मित वंश स्थूनं त्वचारो मनकै पिनद्रम् अक्षरत नव द्वार अगारम् एतत् विट्टमूत्रपूर्णं मत् उपैति क अन्या विदेहानां पुरे हि अस्मिन् अहम् एका एव मूढधीः यानीं या अन्याम् इच्छन्ति सत्य यान्याम् इच्छति असति अस्मात् आत्मतात् कामम् अच्युत सुहृद प्रेष्ठतमः नाथ आत्मा चायं शरीरिणां तं विक्रीय आत्मना एव अहं रमे अनेन यथा रमा. यत प्रियं ते विभजन् कामाये कामदा नराः आद्यवन्तः भार्यया देवाः वा कालविद्रुताः नूनं मे भगवान् प्रीत विष्णु केनपि कर्मणा निर्वेदः अयं दुराशाया यत् मे जात सुख आवह. मा एवं स्युः मंदभाग्यायाः क्लेशाः निर्वेद हेतवः येन अनुबन्धं निरत्य पुरुषो शमं पृच्छति तेन उपकृतम् आदाय शिरसा ग्राम्य संगताः त्यक्ता दुराशा शरणं प्रजामि तम् अधीश्वरम्. संतुष्टा श्रद्धाति एतत् यथा लाभेन जीवति विहार अम्यमुने मुना एव अहम् आत्मना रमणेन वै संसारकुपे पतितं विषयमुषित ईक्षणं ग्रस्तं काल इहान आत्मानां कः अन्यः त्रातुम् अधीश्वरः. आत्मा एव हि आत्मनः गोप्ता निर्विदेत यदा अखिलात् अप्रमत्त इदं पश्येत् ग्रस्तं काल अहिना जगत्. श्री ब्राह्मण उवाच एवं व्यवसितमतिः दूराशां कान्त तर्षजां चित्वा उपशमम् आस्ताय शय्याम् उपविवेश सः. आशा हि परमं दुःखं नैराश्यं परमं सुखं यसा सच्छिद्य कांत आशा सुखम सुश्वाप पिंगला. Translation and purport by the Srila Prabhupada. Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The prostitute felt disgusted with her material situation and thus became indifferent to it. Indeed, detachment acts like a sword, cutting to pieces the binding network of material hopes and desires. Now, please hear from me the song sung by the prostitute in that situation. O king, just as a human being who is bereft of spiritual knowledge never desires to give up his false sense of proprietorship over many material things. Similarly, a person who has not developed detachment never desires to give up the bondage of the material body. The prostitute Pingla said, just see how greatly illusioned I am because I cannot control my mind. Just like a fool, I desire lusty pleasure from an insignificant man. I am such a fool that I have given up the service of that person who, being eternally situated within my heart, is actually most dear to me. That most dear one is the Lord of the universe, who is the bestower of real love and happiness and the source of all prosperity. Although he is in my own heart, I have completely neglected him. Instead, I have ignorantly served insignificant men who can never satisfy my real desires and who have simply brought me unhappiness, fear, anxiety, lamentation, and illusion. Oh, how I have uselessly tortured my own soul. I have sold my body to lusty, greedy men who are themselves objects of pity, thus practicing the most abominable profession of a prostitute. I hope to get money and sex pleasure. This material body is like a house in which I, the soul, am living. The bones forming my spine, ribs, arms, and legs are like the beams, cross beams, and pillars of the house, and the whole structure, which is full of stool and urine, is covered by skin, hair, and nails. The 9 doors leading into this body are constantly excreting foul substances. Besides me, what woman could be so foolish as to devote herself to this material body, thinking that she might find pleasure and love in this contraption? Certainly, in the city of Vidya, I alone am completely foolish. I neglected the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who awards us everything, even our original spiritual form, and instead, I desire to enjoy sense gratification with many people. This material body is like a house. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is absolutely the most dear one for all living being because he is everyone's well-wisher and Lord. He is the supreme soul situated in everyone's heart. Therefore, I will now pay the price of complete surrender and thus purchasing the Lord. I will enjoy with him just like Lakshmi Devi. Men provide sense gratification for women, but all these men and even the demigods in heaven have a beginning and an end. They are all temporary creations who will be dragged away by time. Therefore, now how much actual pleasure or happiness could any of them ever give to their wives? Although I most stubbornly hope to enjoy the material world, somehow or other detachment has arisen in my heart and it is making me very happy. Therefore, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, must be pleased with me. Without even knowing it, I must have performed some activity satisfying to him. A person who has developed detachment can give up the bondage of material society, friendship, and love. And a person who undergoes great suffering gradually becomes out of hopelessness, detached and indifferent to the material world. Thus, due to my great suffering, such detachment awoke in my heart. Yet, how could I have undergone such merciful suffering if I were actually unfortunate? Therefore, I am in fact fortunate and have received the mercy of the Lord. He must somehow or other be pleased with me. With devotion, I accept the great benefit that the Lord has bestowed upon me. Having given up my sinful desires for ordinary sense gratification, I now take shelter of Him, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I am now completely satisfied and I have full faith in the Lord's mercy. Therefore, I will maintain myself with whatever comes of its own accord. I shall enjoy life with only the Lord because He is the real source of love and happiness. The intelligence of the living entity is stolen away by activities of sense gratification, and thus he falls into the dark veil of material existence. Within that veil, he is then seized by the deadly serpent of time. Who else but the Supreme Personality of Godhead could save the poor living entity from such a hopeless condition? When the living entity sees that the entire universe has been seized by the serpent of time, he becomes sober and sane, and at that time detaches himself from all material sense gratification. In that condition, the living entity is qualified to be in his own protector. The Avduda said, thus her mind completely made up, Pingla cut off all her sinful desires to enjoy sex pleasure with lovers and she became situated in perfect peace. Then she sat down on her bed. Material desire is undoubtedly the cause of the greatest unhappiness, and freedom from such desire is the cause of the greatest happiness. Therefore, completely cutting off her desire to enjoy so called lovers, Pingla very happily went to sleep. Now, Parpat. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The network of material desires is created when one falsely thinks that he can establish himself permanently in the material world. This binding network should be cut by the sword of detachment. Otherwise, one will be forced to wander in the illusory network of Maya with no understanding of liberated life on the spiritual platform. In material existence, all of the senses are attracted by different objects, and thus the conditioned soul becomes a first-class fool. The cause of material life is one's indifference to the absolute truth. The conditioned soul considers himself to be the lord and enjoyer of the material world and consider the purpose of life to be sense gratification. The more one tries to enjoy the material world, the more one's illusion increases. It appears from this verse that the prostitute Pingala was not only earning her livelihood through prostitution, but was actually enjoying her illicit contact with innumerable men. The word Kantada Asatah indicate that she was freely selling herself without discrimination to the most ordinary and useless men, considering them to be lovers. Thus, she said, I was grateful. The word Balisha means one who has a childish mentality without practical experience of right and wrong. Pinglam laments that she chose to serve most sinful, useless men. She falsely thought they would bring her happiness and neglected to serve the actual Lord of the heart, Krishna. She could understand how foolishly she had struggled for money, not knowing that the Supreme Lord is always inclined to award prosperity to his sincere devotee. The prostitute was proud of her ability to please men, but she now laments that she did not try to please the Supreme Lord by loving service. The Supreme Lord is completely aloof from the transactions of the material world. Lord Krishna is the actual enjoyer of everyone and everything. But one who uh, but one must learn how to please the Lord by pure spiritual service. The art of prostitution is based on awakening the enjoying propensity in men. Apparently, this prostitute was so foolish that she maintained a romantic conception of her profession and was actually trying to enjoy loving affairs with her customers, not realizing that they were the lowest of men with the most abominable motives, like the prostitute Pingla. One should understand that by giving up the devotional service of the Lord, one simply becomes a victim of the illusory energy and suffers greatly. The 9 doors leading into and out of the body are the 2 eyes, the 2 nostrils, the mouth, the 2 ears, the genitals, and the anus. Vansh or spine also means bamboo, and indeed the skeleton appears to resemble a bamboo construction. Just as bamboo can be immediately burned to ashes or chopped into pieces, similarly, the material body, which is constantly deteriorating, may at any moment may be crushed into powder, cut into pieces, drowned, burned, suffocated, and so on. Eventually, the body must disintegrate, and therefore, there is certainly no one as unfortunate as one who has dedicated himself, heart, and soul to this flimsy body, which is filled with unpleasant elements. The real friend of all conditioned souls is the Supreme Lord, and only He can award the highest perfection in life by following the example of Lakshmi Devi, who always remain at the lotus feet of the Lord. One will certainly obtain eternal happiness. One should make the best use of the material body, which is a bad bargain, and surrender one's body, mind, and words to the Lord. Paying such a price, one can purchase the Lord, who is everyone's dearmost well-wisher. Thus, one's ancient propensity for sense gratification will automatically be controlled. In this material world, everyone is basically pursuing his personal sense gratification, and thus everyone is being ruined by the influence of time. On the material platform, no one actually helps anyone else. So-called material love is simply a cheating process, as the lady Pingla is now discovering. Pingla stated in a previous verse that even the demigods are unable to give actual happiness to a woman. One may question who has authorized this lady to reject even such exalted personalities as Brahma, Shiva, and the other demigods. The answer given here is that if one actually wants to solve all the problems of life and go back home, back to Godhead, then the only solution is to take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. It is well known that the demigods themselves are subject to birth and death. As stated by Lord Shiva himself, Mukti Pradata Sarvesham Vishnu eva na samshayah. There is no doubt that Vishnu is the deliverer of liberation for everyone. In this verse, Pingala states that by the Lord's mercy, a self-realized soul can see that the entire universe is existing within the jaws of the greatest serpent of time. Certainly, this is not a promising situation, and one who sees it loses his desire for sense gratification. Thus, by Lord's causeless mercy, the spiritually sane living entity can protect himself from illusion. Since Pingla is now glorifying the personality of Godhead for his mercy in awarding salvation, the following question might arise. Is she worshipping the Lord out of love, or is she merely a salvationist desiring liberation from material existence? In answer, it may be said that in her Krishna conscious situation, she is already liberated, even though remaining in this world, her program will now be simply to render loving service to the personality of Godhead without any personal desire, including that of salvation. Thus end the purpose of the humble servants of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada to the 11th canto, 8th chapter of the Srimad Bhagwatam, entitled The Story of Pingla. Now prayers. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Ena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Ena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vande Aham Sri Guroho Sri Yutapada Kamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavancha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sahadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanvitancha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyata Deshatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhecha Krupa Sindhubhe Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Nama Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Dandat Pranam. Now today we completing chapter 8, the story of Pingla, Srimad Bhagwatam, canto 11. We try to understand from shloka 28 to 44. In this shloka, last shloka, we start about hearing the prostitute Pingala. Who is the Pingala? About the story of the Pingala. How she harassed when she waiting for the man for his maintenance, as she think that anyone can come, and she pleased him, and he gave him so much in lot of money, and he only trying and he taking the only business of prostitution. Other side, she cannot understand what is she is doing is wrong or not, and she taking the when she harassed or morose, then she thought about in his heart coming about the Lord Krishna. And ahead we try to understand that story ahead. Here in this chapter, we know that the Avdut the taking the lesson from again taking the lesson from the python, then from the ocean, and then try the moth, then bumblebee, honeybee, uh, Avdutta, then taking lesson from the female elephant and honey thief, then deer, and then the fish, how fish, because of the sweat attachment to the sense of taste, he caught on the baited fish hook and must die. Similarly, here they told that unintelligent person who is victimized by his insatiable tongue will also end up and losing his life. And then the story coming of the prostitute. Uh, Most important point in this chapter, if we want to take that, only one who has given up such hankering can fix himself in meditation upon the personality of Godhead and achieve transcendental peace, means taking the shelter of the Lord. The Pingala consider her mind and achieved the supreme platform of peace, because there no man come to see her, and in disgust she finally became renounced and giving up her hankering for the arrival of a suitor. Thereafter she engaged herself in thinking only of the supreme personality of Godhead. Means lastly, when she giving up all hopes of her, then she take the uh, shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. But we know from her story that before we know all understanding and we regularly knowing about the Bhagavad Gita and Bhagwatam. So we not give up our time, and in before in time we understand the importance of our human lives, and we cannot waste our human life in wasting all other things which are not helping in our progress of devotion to the supreme personality of Godhead. And this network of the material desire is created when one falsely thinks that he can establish himself permanently in the material world, but no one can live in material world permanently. This is temporary, and this word is called dukkhalayam or shashvatam. And network of Maya with no understanding of liberated life on spiritual platform, and she attacked upon us. So we live alert to taking the shelter and to think about the Supreme Lord. And then here Pingla's prayers or his lamentation, his prayers coming in shloka number 32 ahead. She she thought herself foolish. How she was foolish, that describing in there, and there the word Balisha and Kantat Asata are coming, and that indicates that she was freely selling herself without discrimination to the most ordinary useless men, considering them to be lovers. And now the after she considering about the Krishna, and then after that midnight she go upon the bed and taking deciding to taking the shelter of the Krishna, she slept and became very heartily happier than before. Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam. Prabhuji will tell you in detail. Mancha kalpatarubhe cha kripa sindhubhe eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo
Thank you very much, Mataji, for
vaishnavebhyo
a wonderful
namo.
summarization and actual going through this particular chapter. If you see, a very important truth about life has come in these shlokas. Asha hi paramam dukkham, nairasham paramam sukham. Material desire, he certainly is the cause of greatest unhappiness. Paramam dukkham. And freedom from such desire is the cause of the greatest happiness. And you see, even in our material lives, whenever there are sessions on, say, team management, bonding, the very first thing which is taught to everyone is Asha karoge to nirasha hogi. So, even if for material aspects it is true, how much true it is for our spiritual journey? If we have any hankering, any material desire, it's going to be on the platform of illusion, Brahma. Because finally, this whole existence itself is an illusion. And this is what Pingala is understanding after going through her mind the futility of her own existence. Now look at Pingala. She is in the city of Vidya. And the Avduta is learning from a prostitute now. So though she had dressed attractively, wearing ornaments, good clothing, and was waiting in anticipation. But then she did not get a good suitor. And her mind became very uneasy. That is where she started to feel herself disgusted. And slowly, the moment you have time and you try to introspect, you understand the futility of our own existence. So same thing happened with Pingala. And she gave up the hankering for the arrival of a suitor. And the moment you are giving up something material, what remains is your originality, which is spiritual. And you start thinking only of Supreme Lord. She did the same and achieved the supreme platform of peace. So what is the instruction that we receive from her story? That hopes for sense gratification are the root cause of all suffering. And this is a universal truth, and that is why you have so many jokes going on regarding husband and wife, regarding a lover and a suitor. Because every story ends up in a disaster. So only one who has given up such anchoring can fix himself in the meditation upon the personality of Godhead and achieve transcendental peace. Because that is what our ultimate objective has to be. You have been doing the same thing, eating, meeting, defending, throughout so many births. And luckily, Bhaunam Janmanamante, you have got this human life form. So why do we want to waste this again? While our objective has to be a Tato Brahma Jigyasa. Why do we want to wait like Pingala at the last moment after having wasted the whole life to think and introspect about Krishna when he is waiting for us, along with us as Paramatma? We just need to introspect inside, think about him, surrender unto him, and follow his instructions. And his instructions are so easy. He's just asking us for Purna Sharnagati. Sarva dharman paritijya mamekam sharnam rajaha. And in return, what he is giving us is complete freedom from all sins, which we have committed in so many ages. And he does not expect anything. Simple. Patram pushpam phalam toyam yo me bhaktya prayachati. Whatever we give, he is happy. And his orders are so easy. Manmana bhava mad bhakto matyaji mam namaskuru. So what is so difficult to do it? And he expects that we share this message with everyone. And when he has come in the form of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he has actually showed us how to do it. Harinam Sankirtan. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So easy to do. And follow the instructions. Jare dekho tare kaho, Krishna Upadesh. If you are able to do this, we can be assured of achieving the ultimate objective of our life, which is Krishna Prema. So requesting you all who have joined little late today to please join as early as possible, because the relish that we get by going through these sentences of Bhagavatam, this 11th canto which we are continuing, is beyond explanation. You get that relish only when actually go through it. So requesting you all to kindly take this message, pass this message, and together all of us in association, following instructions of Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada, embark and successfully complete this journey. We just need to do ABCDE. So let us do the ABCDs properly, and we'll get the G, the Godhead, Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna, and we all will be able to serve him in his Dvibhij Govinda Roop in Golok Vrindavan. Hare Krishna. Vancha kalpataru